Hey, I'm letting her get a couple of pictures while we're up here, y'all.
And I can take some, like, during break, I can't just, like, you already have the recording, and so I can take some.
Okay.
Yeah, let me see. Is that on? Can you tell?
No, let her look. I don't have my glasses. See if it's on for him.
Can you tell whether that's on or not? Okay.
Okay.
You're doing my job for me. You're doing my job for me. Sorry. Trying to get everybody placed here. Okay. Now let me get up here.
Okay. Smile, you guys. We're getting a couple of shots first. That's my camera. I'm letting her get us some shots of flowers.
Okay.
Told you she's a natural.
Okay.
So there's nothing, no topic. He done told you about what, yeah. It's just the broken generation.
Now the title
About why we broken.
is The Broken Generation. That's what I'm going to introduce this as.
Okay.
And we're talking to Mr. Greenlee, Mr. Young, and Mr. Flowers.
Yes.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, very good. And so what we want to do is to start off, and this is a 30-minute show.
Okay.
First part is 6 minutes. That's the first segment. And the second, and we'll have that first segment, 6 minutes, background, education, experience, which is to say that we'll get that kind of general information from the three of you. You know, you'll take about 2 minutes to give who you are, 2 minutes as to who you are,
Okay.
and 2 minutes as to who you are. And that should be that first segment, you see. And then we'll have a commercial break. Then we'll have a commercial break for 2 minutes. And then we'll come back with a second segment of 8 minutes, you see. And this is where we'll get into the topic, the broken generation. Since this is Ms. Greenlee's title, we're going to let her start off by explaining what she meant, what she means by the broken generation. And then that will be that second segment. We'll go from 1, 2, 3, and that kind of.
Okay.
And then we'll have that 8 minutes, and then we'll come back with 10 minutes, and then we'll start picking up on that. But sort of, this is the fourth show for me. I've been doing this
All right.
since, yeah. What we want to try to do is to make sure that we feed off one another, which is to say that if she has some information, et cetera, dealing with the broken generation, we're going to start with you, with the broken generation, and I want you to explain to me why you brought these folks here with us and make some statements in reference to that. That'll give
30 minutes.
That'll give you an opportunity, me an opportunity to start with you, and you can talk, and then but you'll be talking about them, and then after you get through explaining them, then I'll go to one of them, and that but from that we'll alternate between them, so you shouldn't have any problems. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. Whenever you're ready.
All right. Can we have you say your name and count to 10? Just look towards Dr. Haney while you do it.
Okay. Willie Young.
You got to speak up, Mr. Young.
Okay. Willie Young.
Yeah, good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, you want me to count out loud?
Yeah.
I was counting myself. Okay.
Yeah, no,
right.
just talk so that.
Yeah.
So we get a level.
Okay.
Yeah. So we can all
Yes.
see.
Willie Young.
Speak
1,
up.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
Okay.
8, 9, 10.
Okay, Mr.
VFlowers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Very good.
Clemmy Greenlee, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, is that right? Are we ready? Okay.
Okay, so when we start, we're looking at you.
Yeah, I'm just looking at me. And the title, and I want you to explain the title. When we start off, I'll introduce the title, and you want to call this "Broken Generation." That might be a title that's not familiar to many people about what we mean when we talk about broken generation, and so we want you to explain what we mean by broken generation and the individuals that you have with you this morning. Okay. All right. God is good. Yes, He is. Thank God. And we're so appreciative of all of you for coming by and helping move this thing forward.
Well, you know, I appreciate you, Dr.
You
You
got-
always help me stay out here.
Yeah, you bring such information. Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is broken generation. And we have with us to talk about the broken generation, Ms. Greenlee, Mr. Young, and Mr. Flowers. Three individuals who have quite a bit of information dealing with this new idea of a broken generation. And let me, Ms. Greenlee, not only welcome you with Mr. Young and Mr. Flowers, but let's have you to give us some information for the sake of the audience, some information in reference to your background, your education, and some of your experiences. And in the meantime, introduce these two individuals to me and to tell me why they are with you today.
Oh, yes. Good morning, Dr. Haney. Again, thank you for having me on your show. Again, my name is Clement Greenlee. I'm the founder of Nashville Peacemakers Stop the Violence Campaign, and I'm also a community advocate. I want to talk about broken generation because it's in my mind is that we don't talk enough about our young men, our young black men that's being not only lost out here, but why they are broken. And I brought Mr. Young here with me and Mr. Flowers because they are young black men, and they do a lot in the community to impact society themselves. And I would like for them to just gear in on why they think that this generation is broken and not lost.
Very good. Now, let's have you, Mr. Young, give us a little information in reference to your background, and which will be followed by Mr. Flowers.
My name is Willie Young. Everybody knows me as Chill Will, party promoter, concert promoter. And I've been working with kids since I've been in Nashville. I'm originally from Memphis. I went to Tennessee State, played baseball, and pledged Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated. And, you know, all my life here in Nashville, I've always had a passion to help and work with people. And that's, you know, that's what I've been doing, you know, since I've been in Nashville. And that's something I definitely love dearly.
Very good. Mr. Flowers?
Yes, my name is Vic Flowers. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. And basically, what I do in the community, I do different outreaches. I do outreach through music as well, and try to connect with other organizations to do outreach as well. From one of the organizations like Youth for Christ and the Eye of a Future program and things like that.
And so both of you are deeply involved, as is Ms. Greenlee, in reference to, let's start us off, Ms. Greenlee, dealing with broken generations. We've got about 2 minutes before we end this first segment. Let's talk about this broken generation.
But the broken generation with me is a lack of communication with our young people. It's a lack of education, and it's also a lack of finance. But more than anything, it's a lack of binding our communities together. We so quick to just pour in the negative of why our young generation is lost or broken, but we don't have too many structures to be coming in to help us, you know, put things together to get everything back on track. So this is why I want to just come and just talk about mostly the lost generation and the broken generation.
What do you see, Mr. Young, as some of the real problems with our young men today?
Well, Clemmy, she expounded on two, income and education, but to me, you also need that family structure. You know, a lot of our kids are not growing up with two-parent families. They growing up with just a mom being the mom and the dad, and that's like a strain on the whole entire family.
And so in real sense, you see that as one of the real reasons that we have. What about you, Mrs. Flowers, in terms of looking at some of the issues, some of the problems that our young African-American men have this day?
The major problem that I see in our generation today is we're missing the father. We're missing the man in the home. If we can reconnect that, or we can get men to step up and be like big brothers and big sisters. I heard of their program, and that's some things that they do, and such as, like I told you yourself, about like the Hour of the Future program. That's one of those mentoring programs over the years that helped me, and they got programs that's developing now today that's trying to reach out and really grab these young men by the hand and disciple them.
And so you see this as one of the issues? That
yes, that's one of the major issues. That's a major issue in our community today.
And Ms. Greenlee, oftentimes we talk about the absence of young men in terms of fathers, in terms of a father figure. And would you consider that to be part of the broken generation, the absence of fathers?
Well, of course, that's number one big problem. But the main problem with me is, like I said, lack of funds. Because a lot of fathers are already dead. A lot of fathers are already incarcerated. But you got other fathers out here that are willing to pick up and pitch in, but they don't have the finance or the means to do so. So I'm asking is why we can't be financed ourselves so we can do our own mentoring out of our own houses and out of our own community.
Very good. And of course, what we'll do, we'll take our first commercial break, and then we'll come back for the second segment, and we'll be back with you following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Ms. Greenlee, Mr. Young, and Mr. Flowers, and we're dealing with the issue of the broken generation. Now, Ms. Greenlee has given us excellent information in reference to what she believes constitutes the broken generation, primarily young African-American males who really don't have much of an opportunity in a real sense, dealing with education and other aspects in order to live the good life that is promised by all living in America in a real sense. And so I think that from that perspective, let's speak to that, Ms. Greenlee.
Well, you know, Dr. Haney, for a long time I've been talking about how we have to help our black boys get back into society. And I'm not just talking about a handout. I know people always holler, well, they got to want it. And I've been around a lot of them that want it, and we've been around a lot that don't. So you don't focus on that. You focus on those who want it. My hardest part I have with the young black men is when I done seen them go through school and I done went to their graduation and they still call me on the phone filling out an application at McDonald's or Crystal somewhere and asking me to help them spell this word or figure out this sentence. So I want to bring it back to we are being, number one, rushed through the school system. Number two, we're not being taught and educated like we're supposed to be because the lack of patience that a lot of people have for us. So I want to come back to the grassroots community, the grassroots homes, and really just gravitate and teach our youth. We could talk about everything from school, from the Bible to all the above, but if you just really not gravitating and reaching them, then this point is just ruthless. So I think, you know, we start accumulating our own monies and we start accumulating what we believe belong to us, and then we reach out there and get our us's, then we'll see a totally different thing. I've been here for almost 15 years, and I have not one time been granted a federal grant. Now, do I want it? No, I do not, because it's going to tell me what I need and need not to do. But it's also some local community grants out here and some elected officials and some other powered people that know what I do should already want to pour funds into me for me to continue my work. This is why these two young men are very valuable to me, to talk about more on their level or what do they see and what helped them.
If you look at that from that perspective, Mr. Young, what are some of the really must needs that you believe people in your generation have? I mean, what do you have to have? You understand that there's a high incarceration rate, there's unemployment, and there are many other things, but from your perspective, what do we need? What do they need?
First, education.
First, second, first, good.
And then wealth. Because I can reflect back to the last 15 years that I've established organizations and groups with young kids, and I'll never forget the money that we spent, you know, to maintain, to, you know, take the kids out, to, you know, pick them up, to feed them. You know, it costs a lot of money, and then you got to pay your staff. So it definitely has to do with, you know, the money part as far as keeping these organizations, you know, together. You know, I go back and look, and, you know, 1999 we had all kind of different organizations. Now you look, there's only like maybe 2 or 3 organizations when it comes to dealing with our young black boys.
What about you, Mr. Flowers, from that perspective?
Our thing is I go right back to discipling. I said it got to start with ourselves. Of course, we're going to need funding because funding going to help you do some things and get out there. I will use some of the examples like the Our Future program I was speaking of that helped bring me up throughout the years. They took us out of town on vacations. They taught us about black history. They taught us about being men and women to prevent teenage pregnancies and things like that. But it took finances. Right now, the organization is not operating. That's because of one of the things is finances. So if we can get someone to start finding out about these programs and financing these programs, and then we can keep these programs to come for the next generation to come.
In a real sense, you think that the local governments and the federal government and individuals ought to be willing to provide the resources. That is, the clients are there. The people who are willing to lead the clients are there, but there's simply not enough financial resources to help you do what you think that you ought to do. Is that what we're saying here, Ms. Greenlee?
That's exactly what we're saying. I say it all the time, Dr. Haney, look around us. You know, they're building a whole city here, and I don't blame the people about whoever they is that's building the whole city, but we're not included. You know, me and my brother, we talk all the time, and I listen to the things he be saying, and he be so angry. He said, look at the whole city that's being built around us. We don't have any of the construction jobs. We don't have any tie-ins into what's coming up around us. And then he also made me realize, if I go up and down Buchanan, he'll say it all the time, the only thing we have here is a liquor store, a funeral home, and Buds. But all around us is all kind of other avenues, but it don't belong to us. So they want to know like why we not doing and why we not building anything. Well, number one, we can't get in. Number two, if we had the finances, and I'm gonna keep saying it. I mean, you can bring me the Bible. You could bring me the man at the front door, but once that door closed at 4 o'clock, there's nothing else going on for these young men, or some of these young ladies too, but we talking about the young men now, to do. If we had our own finance, our own monies, this man's organization not only can be rebirthed, it can stay open as long as it wants to. My household that I opens up every single day and night for anybody can stay up and continue to function and run into the wee hours of the day. But it'll give us also the opportunity to be teaching them and showing them the way to life and the way to get back out here in society. So I'm going to keep on saying, if you don't think it's about money when it comes to us in this poor, low income neighborhood and communities, then I think we all need to come back to the table.
And in a real sense, what we're saying, Mr. Young, is that the absence of any kind of financial resources to help support the things that the two of you are doing also helps create a large number of other social problems. When we talk about incarceration, we talk about violence, gangs, drugs, and etc. All is tied into the fact that there are no structures within our community to help, excuse me, alleviate some of these problems. Is that what we're saying?
I definitely agree with that. And another thing that's so valuable, you know, to add on to your point is that, you know, these organizations, you know, like the Eye of the Future, I remember that program, you know, and Calvin Peterson, he ran that program for years and years and years. And I just remember one day he was saying, well, you know, I got to let the program go. And I never understood why he said that, but, you know, now seeing, you know, what I see now is based on finances, based on the money.
No kind of support.
But our part, right.
Not just from the local government, but also from your neighborhood.
Neighbors,
Neighborhood got to pitch in, the leaders, everybody.
There's such a, and of course what we're going to do, we're going to take our second commercial break, and then we're going to come back during this last segment and allow you to further elaborate upon what the three of you consider to be some of the issues. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Ms. Greenlee, Mr. Young, and Mr. Flowers, and the topic is broken generation. What we're trying to do with this program this morning, Ms. Greenlee, is to make people aware of the lack of any kind of resources that can help many of our young people stay out of trouble in a real sense. And I think the term you use is broken generation, and I think that a large number of our young people fall within that category, not because of their own inability to do anything, but simply because of the inability of the government, local communities, private organizations to help provide the resources that are necessary to keep them out of jail, to keep them out of killings and et cetera. Speak to it from that perspective, Ms. Greenlee.
Well, Dr. Haney, if you really look at it, people do their research. Everything that we had, like Mr. Young was saying from the early 90s, it's either been cut out, it's been shut down, or it's been taken away. The budgets have been cut. It always been cut in our low-income communities. We had it where we was filtering out. So now you want to talk about the high rate of incarceration, the drug sales, the gangbangers. Okay, everybody know my son was murdered by a gang member, but it was not because he was struggling, he couldn't find a job and stuff like that. It was because wouldn't nobody let him in. So if you got people, getting busted selling drugs and stuff like that, you got to think, they trying to work. Everybody don't have a felon. Everybody's not going to be able to go to college. Everybody's not going to be able to qualify for Belmont, Vanderbilt, Oasis, Mount O'Brien. Some people, you put an application in some stuff, you either make $1 too much or $1 too less. So where we come in at between. So until we start realizing that we have to put our own monies in together, leaders have to put in monies in a pot for our own selves in order for us to continue to be out here and to work and make our lives, our youth, and our community more safer and watch it grow instead of sitting back watching things grow around us and we not being involved. I don't understand how we can sit back and just watch that.
Speak to that, Mr. Young.
Well, my thing on it is that, our young youth, they don't have income. I remember when I grew up, it was a program called CETA. Every summer, I had a summer job making money. And that kept me out of trouble. Because you work, and then once you get your money, you go and, take care of, do whatever you're going to do. Buy your candy, buy your school clothes, whatever you got to do. But now, it's like we're not blessed with that silver spoon in our mouth. Non-blacks, they got 80% chance of being successful. Non-black kids, 87%. So that means you can make 2 or 3 mistakes and still come back and you be successful. But our young boys, our kids, that's not the case.
Mr. Flowers.
Well, a lot of things, quite a few things I like to address. As I was coming up in the Preston Taylor projects, Preston Taylor homes, our community has changed tremendously. Of course, they'll knock the brick projects down and they don't rebuild some nicer homes and things like that. But they took our community center away from us. So now all the kids, a lot of kids now, they're turning to drugs. And so, that's one thing that I say is like, I see all these signs of these governments when it's time for elections, they want to show up, walk through your neighborhoods and things like that. But why can't we visit our neighborhoods throughout the years? Why can't we do that quarterly to see what we need in our community? That center was a big part of our community because at the community center, we had haunted houses, we had skating parties, we had dances, we had programs, African drum programs. A lot of programs came through there with Mr. Perry when he was down there working there. And now we don't have that. So a lot of kids are turning to drugs. A lot of kids are turning to gang violence. And so we need things local in the community. Look at our stores. We have malt liquor stores all in our community. We don't have the fruits and vegetables that's close. Everybody don't have a vehicle. So we need to reach out to our community and come together and bring these resources together. Just as Mr. Young, I worked with him when I was younger, passing out flyers and things like that, selling candy bars. Why? He helped me put money in my pockets to buy school clothes because my mom had 5 kids and she wasn't able to do it by herself. So we need to fund these programs and find out about these programs and get the resources there so we can turn our communities around. And like Miss Greenlee said, when we get these funds, we're not alert about what's going on in our community. When they set them signs out there and they talking about these meetings, well, I grew up, we don't know nothing about that. They're not pulling us together, knocking on our doors to say, hey, we need you to come to this meeting because we're trying to do these zone hearings. 34 years old, and I'm just finding out about these things. Why? Because I'm blind to that. And so it's basically like we've been blindsided by a lot of things. And so we need to come together and work as a unit. And so I see exactly where she's coming from, and I'm there to support and try to bring things together to better our community.
I would like to say something. I want to add to that. You know, the thing about it is, you know, everybody's wise. You know, the government's wise, the leaders are wise. So if it's a problem in the black neighborhood, then they should be the first to know. So if it's an epidemic, then we got to go ahead and take care of that. You see what I'm saying? So why spend $250-something million on some development or renovation when we need 50 or 60 million in the black neighborhood, you know, to save our young boys? Especially when it's an epidemic. It's an epidemic.
And so the three of you would agree that unemployment, and I think that that's one of the prime things that we're talking about in a real sense, that these young people really don't have any opportunities toward employment and et cetera. And so, and I would suspect that it's probably much worse than we think it is. Because all you have to do is look around, and when you turn on the news at night and you see some of the problems, young people trying to just make money anyway, snatching money off people who riding by with bicycles and whatever, anything that they might be able to use in order to get a little money. And I think that's the real problem. And I think that all of you have identified that as a real issue here. Now, another thing, what about methods that we, as young people, have thought of in terms of trying to stop voting, for example, participation in the political process? We've got an election that's coming up, but now if we don't participate, then
no change won't be made. And that's another thing. Like you said, if you have these programs to where it needs to be drawn out when these elections come, we need to have these programs to go out and educate people on voting and the importance of voting, because like I said, we weren't taught, but I am a registered voter and I do vote, and I will be voting this coming August. But it's like getting to know who we're voting for, because a lot of people just running with the crowd. And so that's the thing. We need to be educated about that. I mean, what do these people do and what they're not going to do, or what improvements need to be made so we can present these things to these candidates and see if they grab interest. But myself right now, to be part of the community, I coach for the Jefferson Street Bills, 7- and 8-year-olds, and that's helping giving back to the community, because I had coaches that gave back to me. And so that's what we're trying to do now, is just find different avenues to grab these kids by the hand and give them something to do other than being on these corners and selling drugs and joining gangs.
Mr. Young?
I would also want to add to that is, you know, I'm working on a campaign, and this is like my first time working. If I could do it all over again, I would have became a politician, because a politician, they controls everything. You know, they know everything that's going on in this city. They know everything that needs to be done for these neighborhoods and these communities. So I would have became a politician, because you know the things that I see, like he said, you know, everybody's coming out now. They want you to vote for them, but once they get that office, are you going to see them again? So this time we want to make sure whoever become our leader, our local leader in Nashville, we're going to hold you accountable.
You know, it appears to me that one of the things that we need to do is to make sure, and I think Mr. Flowers has hit up on it, to make sure that people are registered to vote. You see, because I understand that only 6% of 6 out of 100 people vote in the Nashville elections and et cetera. When you got a voter turnout like that, nobody's concerned, because the politicians have money. And the government has money, and the only thing that shakes the money tree is a vote. You see, and people who don't participate in it don't get served in a real sense. It's a terrible thing to say, but I think that that's true. And I think that what we're doing, we're coming to the last few seconds of this show today. And I want to thank the three of you for coming by and giving us that excellent information in reference to what Ms. Greenlee has described. And I think she's the first person that has described this situation as a broken generation. She talked about broken women and et cetera. And so we want to thank the three of you, and we want to encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.